Yeah. Alright. Time to watch that anime that I've been putting off for a while. Hope it's good.
3 hours later.
You know what? Yeah. That was a pretty good anime. I mean, it had a lot of controversy about it, apparently, and I wasn't very sure if I'd like it. But, after watching it, no. It is a good anime. And I'm happy that I watched it. And I'm happy that Goblin Slayer is getting a second season. Alright, guess I better finish that essay I've been putting, What the... Looks like there's something on my computer screen. Oh. Yeah, that's right. You still exist.
Hello Internet, what's going on? It's me, Ricardo, the cynical critic. And just so you know, that last line wasn't exactly meant to be the kick to the miniskirt area that it sounded like. It's just that what I warned against the last 2 times with the show has sort of come to pass. Firstly though, for those a little unsure about this show and what's going on, RWBY is a Western anime created by Monty and produced by RWBY Productions. It's a story about 4 girls and their tag-alongs, fighting against the forces of darkness in a futuristic, fantasy-inspired setting to save their world from the evil witch Salem. There's jokes, cool-looking characters, waifus fighting monsters, and all in decent-looking CG. It did really well. At least in the first 3 seasons while Monty was still alive. Afterwards, well, it's a mixed bag. Kinda like one of those dollar store baggies if the contents were from a rundown Goodwill. Yeah, sure, you might find a Game Boy game or a nice looking pair of jeans, but mostly it's just gonna be a bunch of old gadgets and some worn out Beanie Babies. But at least the fan base is still going strong. In the same manner that the doctor said that we're going to have to start a stronger course of chemo, otherwise the you-know-what is going to take over. Well, that doesn't matter, because it's the fighting that we really love. Okay, that's not good anymore either. How about the awesome character? Oh, yeah. You know what? There wasn't much that really got me excited about this new season, which is surprising since I used to remember being so thrilled for the next volume. But after the 3rd, that hype for me and for the fan base has sort of gone downhill. But hey, at least this year I remember when the volume was wrapping up, which makes sense considering that they've had more than enough time to do so. Anyways, RWBY Volume 8. What's it about and what did I think about it? Let's take a look. Well, it starts off where it left off, with the witch Salem preparing to lay siege to the city of Atlas. Grimm are flooding into the area, the characters and teams are separated, General Ironwood is off his fucking rocker, and Cinder is flying with my little ice cream lolly over to see her master, the relic of knowledge in hand. So yeah, things are kinda in the shitter for RWBY. Art mimicking life there, eh? And things only start to get worse all around from there on, as the gang is on the run, having to hide both from Grimm and the Atlas army, as Ironwood is becoming more and more of the tyrannical dictator that he dreamed of becoming. All the while, all hope seems to be lost, as they all have to constantly keep on the move and keep fighting. Yeah, this season starts out as it means to go on, hitting the ground running with constant narrative action and impending doom. All the while, with mediocre and lazy writing, cliches up the wazoo, and characters acting according to the script rather than themselves. It seems to all be done to stir up conflict and tension. Manufactured, but still, it gets everything going as the gang tried to protect the people of Mantle while also trying to stop Salem and Ironwood. Both of them equally evil enemies, willing to kill as many as they can just to get what they want. Eventually, Ironwood even goes so far as to try to cut off Mantle completely from the, equation. Yeah, and you thought RWBY characters couldn't really get any worse. And for some reason, the army and the special unit, now led by Winter, as Lucky Boy ran into a little bit of, bad luck, they all still go along with him, even though any competent military would have removed him from authority long ago, even for just suggesting such a thing. Nope, it takes much longer and even more stupid reasons for that to begin to happen. Meanwhile, Salem is doing all she can to get her hands on the relics, and now that she has the Lamp of Knowledge, she just needs the Staff of Creation along with the little farmer boy so that she can get her ex to give her the secret passcodes into the Relic Clubhouse. In time, she manages to get the latter by using a unique and rather surprising Grimm to sniff the Shadow out. And since he keeps bugging me to bring this up, speaking of which, it goes to show the depths of the obscurity the show has fallen into, as little to no art has been made of this moment. At least according to my expert.
I am horny and deeply disappointed.
Well, for me, it was more the fact that the regular RWBY fan art has sort of waned, which is just another sign that RWBY is no longer interesting enough for the general public to care about. Anyways, in the time that it takes for this to occur, I would just like to say, for the record, Ya Anna, that Rooster Teeth stole 3 ideas from me! I knew you son of a bitches were watching my videos! It's the only reason why they keep getting demonetized and blocked at irregular intervals. I won't spoil too much, but the first has to do with Cinder's backstory that I hinted to at least back in my Volume 3 review. The second was about Oscar and Ozpin, which I hinted at in my Volume 4 and 5 reviews. And the third was that Grimm! Now, while I really didn't release the idea fully, I did hint to it and the fandom did the rest. Suffice to say, it has to deal with bringing dead people back to life. And I said that it was a stupid idea then, and it's still a stupid idea now. In fact, as the season went on and more things started to happen, that kept popping up in my mind. We have at least a baker's dozen's worth of shocking turn of events that Stevie fucking Wonder could have seen coming. Salem and Ironwood trying to one-up each other in the evil action contest. The characters saying and or doing startling things with half the time it going against their established personality, that or just making no sense whatsoever. Heroes becoming villains, villains becoming heroes, and all the while some nuances dumped on a few of them, but every single time it was either a stupid and or lazy idea. It was clearly done because the writers had to check off a few boxes to make it seem like there was growth and stakes taking place. But no, there weren't. It was simply conflict and contrivances. Now, the middle of the season is taken up by basically Ironwood making some stupid choices, all the while the writers pretend that it's the hard kind, done by a man, pushed too far, and you idiots aren't fooling anyone. You did it because you needed to pad out the runtime while giving our characters something to do in the meantime, which they do, but you did it at the expense of a character simply because A, he's white, B, he's a male, and 3 times more disposable than any other character. However, all the things that our girls do are almost either completely pointless or overly complicated. Mainly because I kept wondering why everyone didn't just pack their shit and leave. Because, you know, living in a winter-laid wonderland all their lives, I'm pretty sure these people would know how to survive in the snow. But nope, I guess they just can't handle the cold because, I don't know, they all immigrated in. Probably illegally too, but that doesn't mean that they're bad hombres. Just that most of them are, at least according to Ironwood. Which would explain why he thought that they could be removed from the, situation. You see, the main overarching goal for our girls this season is to save the people of Mantle and Atlas. I know they're technically supposed to be the same place, but that's like saying that the Beverly Hills and the shit-covered needle-infested rat-filled streets of downtown LA are technically the same place as well. And let's not even get into the crater where all the animals live, cause it's way too late to try to talk about human-faunus relationships now, you dynamic dum-dums. However, while their goal is to get everyone to safety, I just kept getting Last Jedi vibes, because they just kept bouncing around all over the place and lingering too long without the writers having an actual plan that the audience could follow. Also, if you're wondering what happened to Salem in this season, I kept asking the same thing. Both her presence and personality have been altered this season just out of the blue, and it makes things a little annoying. You'd expect that she'd be storming the gates, seeing that she can wield magic, has a near infinite army of monsters, and can't die. But nope, she just stands there in her floating fist fortress like her time would be better spent at practicing her orchestra conducting skills. Listen, you idiots, she didn't do anything last time because she was remaining in the shadows, working behind the scenes in secret. It's kinda hard for her to do that now that she's rocked up on the city, Megamind style. Anyways, eventually we get to the end, where the gang saves Oscar, rallies their scattered forces, and uses the ability of the staff to portal everyone to safety. And here is where the writers try to shock us again, like with what happened back in Season 3. The only difference is that we had no direct indication that that was coming then. Here, it's obnoxiously obvious that they were going to do it. Not just because the story was basically blaring it, but also because they all suck at writing, and so we know that they're going to fall back onto this crutch. And what few setups they do have do not pay off, as either they were given no time to really care about these moments, or we know that they just can't be the way that they seem. For instance, because we can't be a dark and serious anime without them, some characters die. And I didn't even hesitate to care. Mainly because we were given no time to care, and none of the responses from the other characters felt natural. Para being killed hit us both because she was a beloved character, and the silence, reaction, and time from RWBY gave it the weight that it needed. Here, one dies with no chance of remorse or redemption, and with no one to even know that he died despite being personally connected to one of the main characters. Another kicks the bucket because of the utterly asinine actions of another character who showed no signs of being a genocidal maniac, and as far as we know, didn't even need to sacrifice themselves in the first place. One more dies to strike a blow at Salem and give the others a chance to escape, but whose arc that led to this moment was more pathetic than John. And the last one has no weight because despite being another beloved character, they were never really developed properly, and their death just comes and goes with very little gravitas. And what's even worse is they try and pull a fast one on us by making it seem like one of the main 4 characters is gone for good. Even though we know for a fact that, apart from the final season, and even then, they would in no way try that, so it's more like a false shock, like when we get in a film that tries to pretend like the main character just died. Listen, I know that you think anime fans are stupid, and you may have a point with some of them. Most aren't, and are going to see through this, you two-bit hacks. Anyways, the season ends on an attempt for a bittersweet note, as while the ironically now named Winter Maiden escapes with most of the citizens and some of our main characters, we are left with Atlas falling and being destroyed, Salem getting both of the relics, Cinder apparently killing her nemesis, the people of Atlas and Mantle, all 300 of them, being stuck in the middle of nowhere, about to be attacked by Grimm, and Team RWBY gone for good. Or are they? Of course they're not, and you trying to end it on another dumb cliffhanger with another dumb and obvious end credit fake out that makes us go, oh shit, Sherlock, just pisses me off. So there it is, the 8th volume of RWBY and the continuation of the rape of Monty's dream. And I just have to say that my first description was correct. It was a mixed bag. Yeah, I might have gotten a little upset and pictured to it as if the season was a complete failure, but that's only because there was some good in it. Seeing the potential for interesting storytelling and seeing the moments to have some compelling character development, only to have most of it utterly wasted or ruined, is tantamount to hearing that some Western companies are finally going to be making some of their own anime with cool and interesting themes, finally giving the title Western animes a chance to shine, only to see the results of their lazy and uncommitted efforts. Now, since you know that I'm going to shit all over the show that I love, like a coprophilic spouse, I think that it's wise to take a breather and talk about the things that I did like. Well, there's the fact that it's still around. I was here when RWBY was birthed into the world, expecting it to fail, seeing it succeed, and proudly hoping that it would live up to the legend of its creator's memory. So I don't want it just to end. I want RWBY, both the show and the character, to prove that they are more than the mediocrity and controversy that they've had, and end on a high note. It won't be able to say that it's perfect, or even great, but I want it to be able to hold its head up proudly and accept that good was good enough for a little show like itself. Another thing that I will admit to enjoying was what I said in the beginning, that it was dynamic. It didn't slow down and stop, for the most part at least, but instead trying to keep the narrative moving and used what little time each episode had to either have things happen or have characters react to them. Sure, not all the time was it good or even productive, but at least it tried to keep us entertained. As for the characters, it was nice to have them act a little less somber and with a little bit more of that humor of their youth. It was also refreshing to see some of them question their own actions, even if most of it felt forced. And having the villains think and plan things for once was pleasant as well. However, that's where I have to say that my enjoyment started to fade as my frustration and annoyance began to build. One of them being that once again, we've got the brain-dead viewers praising to the almighty that RWBY is back and it's good this time, and it's only the haters that are making problems. Good God, sounds like the Star Wars audience after each of the sequels, or more accurately, like false fans. Since the ones that praise these failures are so vocal and stupid, it takes them a little while for either reality to penetrate their thick skulls or for them to run out of breath, because again, given some time, all that praise will fade away. This season of RWBY was no different from the last 4. It had its moments, and some of them were certainly rather enjoyable, but on the whole, its failures dragged it too far down for the good to surface for long. Now, the main issue with the entire season were the actions and emotions of the characters, as they felt more like they were acting according to a script rather than reacting naturally to a well-written series of events. Ironwood was a big annoying metal splinter in the pee hole when it came to this. I know that he's always done things his way, but that way always put him in between the enemy and the innocent civilians. Here they try to make it seem like he was always more than willing to sacrifice half the population, the interestingly less wealthy half, so that the richer 1% could survive. None of you 4 writers for this show have the abilities, let alone the balls, to write a character like Thanos, and you trying to do so only proves your ineptitude, especially since it seemed like you were trying to match his personality to a particular person of color. Speaking of which, I'd like to note that I'm getting tired of the PC insertions into this show, as even talented writers know not to do so, as it's basically impossible. I'm not even going to talk about the black and yellow tumor that rears its inconsistent head again, but for instance, there was this moment where, not unlike my first impressions of Genlock, I was pissed off when they just dropped a character's particular identity out of nowhere and for no reason except inclusivity. By the way, my reasons for my anger about that hasn't changed either, before all you pussies out there get your confused knickers in a twist. And something that was confusing for me was the sudden change of sides or weird interpersonal conflict that many of the characters went through. I know that it's done to create some tension between some of the groups and to give us a shock at someone changing allegiances. But that's just it. It was done to have the characters do something rather than playing off their set personalities and histories. And some of their actions go against it too, as well as most of the time just suddenly dropping the conflict altogether. In fact, that happens more than once, where the conflict is either forgotten or ruined. This is either done to get them over the previous forced issue, to focus on the current forced issue, or because they wanted to have a funny. Listen, you utterly incompetent waste of resources. You changed the tone of RWBY in Season 3, and then completely ruined RWBY's, both the character and the show, ability to have natural humor in Season 4, when you decided to get so serious with the show's atmosphere that you would have thought that it switched to a character drama. I don't think that having the random anime action or pose, or making a character suddenly pop around like it's a low 2D budget still, is going to bring it back. If anything, it actually ruins some of the show's more serious and tender moments. Cause God knows there isn't any way to ruin the humor any more than it's already sunk. It's almost like none of you have actually watched an anime and instead are just copying what few cliches you know of. Motherfucker. I am not even an anime fan, and only in the past 6 months have managed to watch more animes in my previous 30 years to finally bring up my count of watched animes into the 20s, and I still know more about the subject, culture, and uses of anime than you two morons who were both told to watch it by the fucking creator and are supposedly paid to write for an anime show. Now, the last thing to close this on would be, of course, the animation of this anime and its fight scenes, and I just wanted to be known for the record, Your Honor, that I defended the accused multiple times about both these war crimes against the anime that they are being charged with. God, I miss the old RWBY, where everyday movement and actions of the characters were captured with motion capture before being animated, so that they would have a more natural, organic, realistic movement to them. And it was only the fight scenes that were completely synthetically created, because now it looks more like a low-budget indie show than ever before. And that's saying something considering the look of RWBY Volume 1. Stiff movements with weird, unnatural walk and run animations, and very clunky anime poses are just the first minor annoyances that would make even X-Arm embarrassed to be lumped in the same genre as RWBY. And then we get to the fighting, and there's a reason why the quality over quantity accusation holds so much weight, because while we certainly get much more of the fighting in this season, all the jump cutting, the fast-paced editing, the scripted choreography, and the pathetic impact makes me wish I could have lived in the alternative universe where it was these two that kicked the bucket instead of Monty. Hell, I take the universe where Monty still died, but at least they kept Sean on as lead animator, because god damn it if most of the fights feel boring as fuck, and more like an excuse just to keep your attention as the plot drags its deformed, mutilated body along. And now comes the moment where I tell you whether or not this season was worth the watch. And well, it's a yes and no answer. Yes, if you could do it for free. No, if you have to deal with the Rooster Teeth site, let alone pay for the BS at his first membership. Now, let it be legally known for the record that I do not condone people going to to other sites, as I believe that you should at least offer the initial financial compensation for the creator's work. But pardon me, but it has become increasingly difficult to do so with all the controversies coming from this company, with no one even attempting to take responsibility or trying to speak to the community. So yes, while I would say support the show's creators whenever oh god, I must be allergic to shitty writing. You won't believe how much of this I have to cut out of my own scripts. Anyways, I will understand and won't judge any of you who chose to seek alternative sources. As for myself, again, it's a mixed bag. There were things I liked and there were things I hated. All in all, if you're not a RWBY fan but are looking for a decent show to watch while you wait for the dub version of a real anime to come out, you could do far worse than this show. As for RWBY fans, if you're the kind that spends their hard-earned money on canceled games, mediocre products, and failing literature, while utilizing their free time to defend their favorite chips, you'll like this no matter what I say, so just leave your spite in the comments and try not to break your finger on the dislike button on your way out. As for fans who believed in Mani, his dream, and his creative integrity, I don't know. Some of you might, but most of you won't. You'll have to experience it for yourself to find out. I, for one, was disjoyfully happy about it. It's like the current Star Wars franchise. Many of us who like this universe have been beaten and abused by the current creators so much that we'll take any kind of positive note from the franchise. Even though we and the creators should expect more from them, especially since we live in a time where the amount and accessibility of just decent quality animes is quite high. RWBY needs the ability to stand out like it did before. Not because it was the best story or because it got the best characters or even because it had amazing action, but because its community was strong thanks to the strong bond it had with its creators. Creators that put their all, what little there was, into a show they loved, who didn't compromise their creative integrity and did it all for the fans that they cared about. But with the way things are right now, it's far easier to just find other shows to watch than waste your time with an exclusive anime whose fandom isn't as friendly anymore. Hell, I felt more of a desire to rewatch some of the single season animes that I have just seen than I had with watching this volume. Which, I have to say, was the main problem I warned against. That the once loyal fans of RWBY will just start seeking out other franchises that will appreciate their viewership. You see, it's always been a struggle for RWBY against that, and while it could stand out for a moment thanks to Mani, the further and further the writers have gone down this road, the more and more they'll find themselves walking it alone. All the while, the show that we love slowly dies in their arms. However, there might be hope if the creators are willing to go back to the old creed. I'm not ecstatic for the next season, but I am looking forward to see if they keep working on the good while weeding out the bad. Though, given their track history on that, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to make our worst fears a permanent reality. Anyways, that was my first impression on RWBY Volume 8. Did any of you see the season? What did you think? Do you agree with me on some of my takes, or do you think I should be banned and possibly jailed for potential hate speech? Either way, please leave a comment down below, along with which show should the next first impressions be about. Kijo or Kill la Kill? Waifus fighting in lingerie or lingerie fighting waifus? I really don't care because I'm not going to be watching it myself. Instead, I'm going to subcontract it to my expert.
Oh yeah, baby. Bring on the skimpy. I'm ready to oogle some anime booty.
Till next time, you take care, you beautiful bastards. I'm Ricardo, the cynical critic, and sure, sometimes shows you thought you loved might turn out to be a bit more of a complicated relationship than you thought. But hey, while your first impressions may be good or bad, you won't know until you give it a view. I'll catch you all next time. Toodles!